What can the Mona Lisa teach us about decision making? Well, the Mona Lisa is a priceless work of art in the Louvre. And estimates say that if we were to put a price on it, it would be somewhere up to $2.67 billion in terms of its worth. But what if I told you until 1911, the Mona Lisa was relatively unknown? In fact, the Mona Lisa had been missing for over 24 hours before anyone even noticed that it was gone. Over a 2-year period, the news followed the Mona Lisa. And eventually, the anticipation built so much that after 2 years, when it was finally recovered, the amount of people that flocked to see the Mona Lisa was a very large number. Well, what does that have to do with decision making? Well, this is known as the mere exposure effect. People went and saw the Mona Lisa, but when they went and saw the Mona Lisa, they went to say that, wow, this is so detailed, this is so intricate, this is so beautiful. And although all of that may be true, there may be other works of art that are just as intricate as the Mona Lisa, but people may not admire it as much. What's going on, according to psychologists here, is a phenomenon called the mere exposure effect. The news surrounding the theft of the Mona Lisa led to people coming and flocking to actually see the Mona Lisa and building the hype and anticipation around the artwork. And people justify that with saying that they may know about art or they may know about the details of it. However, they may not be able to tell another great piece of work or even name another work by somebody such as Leonardo da Vinci. This happens over and over again. It happens when we go to a restaurant that we may have heard of the name of, but we don't know much about it, but we justify it as a nice restaurant. Or this may also go in stocks, for example. This happens over and over again in the stock market. Take the example of gravitating towards stocks that you may know. A study in England, in British stocks, found that most investors in England, they invest 80% of their portfolio in homegrown British stocks, whereas the overall British economy accounts for only 10% of the market. The logical decision here would be to actually diversify and make sure that you're seeing opportunities in other markets, but people gravitate towards that which they know. Another example of this is normalcy bias. This happens, for example, when in a natural disaster or earthquake ensues and a building begins to shake. People assume that the worst part is over and hence they stay, and they don't evacuate until the very last moment. Again, sticking to what you are familiar with and what you know. Another example of this is if something even sounds good, we have a tendency to gravitate towards it as opposed to something that is more difficult to pronounce. For example, a stock ticker that may be MOO is much more easier to pronounce than something like NTT. So we naturally gravitate towards the MOO as opposed to the NTT. This and numerous other types of biases exist in our thought process, and understanding them can actually help you make better decisions and not be a victim of mere exposure bias. All the best to you.